ladies and gents, what's up? It's Pete Thorn. Welcome to the studio. Hey, today is a special day. It's not lost on me how cool these days are. Every now and then I get to check out something really cool, and today is one of those days. This is an amazing piece of gear with a storied history. It's a guitar. It is the Randy Rhoads RR3, third prototype, made by Grover Jackson specifically for Randy Rhoads. So when Grover Jackson and Randy Rhoads started collaborating in the early 80s on a signature guitar design, the first one built, the RR1, they called that the Concorde. Randy received that guitar, I think, sometime in 81, and he was seen playing it extensively in 81 and 82. Now, this is right around the time I started playing guitar, so I've got memories of seeing that guitar and how crazy and unique and cool it looked. Now, just to illustrate what a big impact that guitar had on me personally, check this out. I had this guitar, look at the case, is super dusty. I had this guitar custom made by a local luthier, probably 1982 or 83 in Edmonton. I haven't looked in this case for years. Here it is. Look at this thing. What do you think I was influenced by? This is a guitar that was made by a local, look at all the strings are off and everything. I've lost the bridge unless it's in the case somewhere. This was made by a local luthier in Edmonton, Canada for me. And that's how much impact that guitar had on me, is that I had a guitar custom made as a little kid to emulate Randy's guitar. This guitar is actually pretty cool too. It's got an original double cream Duncan JB in it, which of course you can't get anymore because it's lawsuit stuff. DiMarzio has the patent on that, but anyway, a little piece of my guitar history there. I've had that guitar, I just realized, longer than anything else in my collection. Anyways, I should get that thing working again. I digress. I just was showing you that for the impact that original Randy Rhoads guitar had on me, the white Concorde. Now, sometime just a few months before Randy passed away, he received the second Jackson Randy Rhoads prototype with some changes that he'd requested. So that guitar was black, and you see him playing it pretty extensively, I think, Diary of a Madman tour. And there's some backstage photos. That guitar was so cool. I mean, nothing looked like that back then. And these were handmade prototype instruments. The Jackson logo, I believe, was hand-drawn by Grover. Now, one of the things about the original white Concorde that Randy wasn't crazy about was the size of the guitar. I heard that it was quite heavy, and it's just really big. And also the upper fret access. You can see in this photo that the RR2, or the second guitar, the black guitar that Randy had made, has much better upper fret access because the bottom sort of wing of the guitar has been slimmed down quite a bit, and just however they joined the neck to the body, it just looks like it's got much better upper fret access. So obviously they were working towards a finished design right around the time of Randy's untimely death. Which brings us to this guitar that I have here today. And there it is. This is the RR3. This is the third prototype made for Randy that he never actually was able to receive because, of course, he passed away. One of the first things you might notice about this guitar that's different than the black one is that the shark fin inlays are reversed. This guitar supposedly featured changes that Randy specifically requested. So what could those be? Could they be the reverse shark fin inlays? A lot of the hardware looks really similar to the black guitar. So in other words, the all brass kind of tailpiece and control plate, knobs, bridge, tailpiece. The pickup rings are brass. And one thing I noticed about this guitar when it comes to the woods, check out the horn there. You can see the wood. It's mahogany, the wings on this guitar. It's a through body maple neck, and it looks like it's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of maple running all through the center of the guitar here. So it'd be a very, very strong maple neck, I would say. And it's got an ebony fingerboard. So although this is a through body neck design, it still kind of features Les Paul custom style woods, right? You've got some mahogany there, maple for the neck, and then an ebony fingerboard. And what I'm getting at here is maybe Randy was going for a tone similar to his Les Paul custom. So this was a 1972 Les Paul custom that Randy was often seen playing. The white RR1 Concorde guitar, that featured a 5-piece through body maple neck as well as maple glued on wings. So besides the ebony board, the whole guitar's maple. It had to be a pretty heavy instrument. The black RR2 model has the 5-piece maple through body neck, but it featured poplar wings and a slightly slimmed down body. So I think they were going for reduced weight. This RR3 model has mahogany wings. So they were obviously prototyping, still has the maple neck, but they tried mahogany wings. They were prototyping, trying different things, seeing what worked. And I would think doing that, using some mahogany for the wings, if it was reasonably light, it would probably cut down on weight versus doing the whole guitar out of maple, maple neck with maple wings. One of the other things that's interesting about this guitar is the radius of the fingerboard. It has has that Jackson, not too thin, but, just very comfortable sort of D neck, that modern neck that Grover kind of pioneered, and it came in the early 80s, and we all kind of got very used to if you started playing guitar around then. It was just very fast. But one thing about the fingerboard, it's rather radiused on this guitar. If I had to guess, and I am going to guess because I don't have a gauge here, I would say it's a 12-inch radius. So that's interesting. Like, was the black guitar a 12-inch radius? Was the original Concorde a 12-inch radius? His Les Paul probably would have been. So, most Jacksons of the era would be a compound radius, going from something like a 12 to a 16, something like that. But this just isn't that flat. Thinking back, I seem to remember that the original Concorde guitar did have quite a flat radius. Anyways, I'm just wondering if that is one of the changes maybe he requested on this guitar, was a more radiused fingerboard, maybe something similar to his Les Paul. I'm just speculating. The pickups in the guitar have been switched out for newer Seymour Duncans, but the originals are in the case. Let's take a look at those. So here's the electronics that I found in the case. Volume pots, original toggle switch, 3-way toggle. And these pickups are Duncan Customs. It's a set of Zebra Duncan Customs. So this is the originals that were in the guitar. Now, I always heard that Randy used Duncan Distortion in the bridge and a Jazz in the neck. So I found it interesting that the pickups are Duncan Customs. Like, at what point, did he maybe decide to request a different pickup or something than what had come in the black guitar? Always heard that that was a Duncan Distortion in the bridge and a Jazz in the neck. The pickups that are in the guitar now, I'm not sure what they are. I didn't want to unscrew the, pickups and take them out. It's not my guitar to do that with. So I just left them in there, but they sound good, they sound crunchy, they sound hot. Just a couple notes about the differences in electronics, as well as some other stuff between these two guitars. On the RR1 Concorde, you basically have a Les Paul control layout. So a volume for each pickup and a tone control for each pickup, 4 knobs. And the pickup selector was on the upper bout, kind of a strange place for it. On the RR2 model, we basically lose a tone control. So there's a master tone and a volume for each pickup, 3 knobs. And the pickup selector moved down to the control plate. Now, on this RR3, all that stayed the same as the RR2. But at some point, somebody's gone and modified this guitar. They pulled the tone control, wired the guitar for 2 volume pots, 1 for each pickup, and there's been a coil tap added for the neck pickup. Now, the RR1 featured a heavy brass tremolo, so kind of Strat design tremolo, essentially. On the RR2 and 3, you've got a tunematic style, really heavy brass tunematic that was custom, evidently, and the strings pass through the body through that really cool V-shaped tailpiece. So I've heard a couple different stories about this guitar. One thing that I heard is that it was supposed to be on its way out to Randy on tour when, of course, the unthinkable happened and he passed away. Like, I had heard that it was on the way to, the next show right after he passed away. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, or if Grover hadn't finished the guitar and just ended up holding on to it. But anyway, there was the RR3 and the RR4. They were both finished, and then this guitar ended up making its way, just kind of as a display piece and a piece of history, to the NAMM show in 1984. And that somebody in the Jackson booth, who probably had a very bad day that day later on, ended up selling this guitar to a guy named Mike by accident. So just a member of the public walking by offered to buy it, and it was sold. At which point, of course, I'm sure Grover completely freaked out. But anyway, that's what happened. And the guitar ended up with this fella, Mike, and it ended up making its way into a music store in Southern California where a young guy named Sean Clegg worked. He was about 17 at the time, was a huge Randy Rhoads fan, and when this guitar made its way into the store, a guy wanted to trade it or sell it. Sean opened up the case and he realized what it was. Now, the store owner, who was evidently sort of like a father figure to Sean, made sure that Sean was able to get the guitar. They did a trade with the guy for another guitar in the store and an amp and some accessories, took the guitar in, and then Sean became the new owner. So that's the kind of strange and interesting history of the guitar. At some point, this switch was added. This is a coil tap switch for the neck pickup. Kind of useful. And then basically with the control layout, you've got a volume control for each pickup and then a 3-way switch for the pickups. Frets look to me to be original. I would say they're quite low and flat at this point, but the guitar actually plays great. It's not super heavy, it's not super light. I would say it's kind of a medium heavy weight. It's got a graphite nut. That really cool hand-drawn Jackson logo. So I kind of went down the Randy Rhoads rabbit hole in making this video and started listening, really closely to a lot of the old Ozzy recordings and watching some videos on YouTube and stuff, and I just got really into it. He was such a unique player. I must admit, I wasn't a huge fan of his tone back in the day, but I'm starting to appreciate it more now, and especially on the Diary of a Madman album. It just works with the music, and it sounds really cool on that record, actually. It's quite a distorted and bright sound. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, evidently he used 4-hole Marshall heads. Some people say he had a cascade mod done where maybe the normal channel of the 4-hole Marshall was cascading into the bright channel, something like that. He also used an MXR Distortion Plus pedal in front of the amplifier, like this one. My good friend Tracy Guns gave me this pedal. To get the guitar sounds in this video, I tried to use this, and actually it just didn't work with the amp that I had dialed up, which sounded great on its own, which is my Sir SL68, like a 4-hole plexi basically. So what did sound really good to me and was kind of getting me in the zone, I felt like, and close to the tone, was this pedal. This is a Boss Super Overdrive. This is the Waza version that you can run in a couple different modes. I ran it in the kind of classic mode where it cuts quite a bit of low end out of the signal, and that kept things pretty tight even when adding some gain. But I used it pretty conservatively. I've also got an MXR 10 band EQ over here. Evidently Randy used a MXR 10 band to kind of tune in the Distortion Plus. I didn't end up using the MXR, it just sounded good with the Boss in front of the amp. But now one of the biggest components of Randy's tone, for sure, was speakers. So evidently he used Altec, I think they're called 417Hs. And the reason he would do this is he felt like Celestion speakers, like, because they're known to be kind of low power and add some distortion of their own, especially when you're cranking up the amps, he felt like it was like too much, like it would just turn into a big fuzzbox kind of sound. Whereas the Altec speakers were like a real robust, tough, high power speaker, and they would keep things clearer, and they were also brighter than Celestions. Like, I think they had aluminum dust caps. Here's a picture of Randy's cabs. You can clearly see the aluminum dust caps on those Altec speakers. Maybe more akin to like a JBL or something like that almost. So to get the sounds in this video, I ran the SL68 into my Sir Reactive load over here, and I took the unfiltered output into my recording interface, and then I actually used impulse responses from Ownhammer of those Altec 417 speakers in a 412 cabinet. And when dialing it up, I thought, what's this gonna sound like? But it actually sounded like really cool. And the speakers, more than pedals or anything like that, are going to be the massive overall filter on the sound. The speaker type has this like total EQ curve that's just going to affect the tone. And I felt like as soon as I dialed up that Altec impulse response, it just kind of got me like right in the zone and really getting in the ballpark of Randy's sound. Now, one thing that Randy used to do is triple track his solos. That means he would track the same part 3 times, and then it's kind of panned all the way through the stereo spectrum. And that just gave him an otherworldly, like kind of huge sound on his solos. And also the slight differences in between each take, you know, lend a little bit of rub and an interesting character to the overall sound. Now, I knew he triple tracked his solos, but like upon listening, it sounds like he triple tracked a lot of stuff. Like the rhythm guitars on Flying High Again, I think, are triple tracked as well. There's those part where you hear those high, like ripping bends in Flying High Again, where that's actually layered on top of the tripled rhythms. So it sounds like sometimes there's like 5 tracks of guitar going on. So I wanted to do a little breakdown and analysis of this triple tracking technique so you can hear what kind of sound it has and soloed outside of the mix. So it's just the lead guitars. So here's me playing the Flying High Again solo, just one take. And now let's check it out tripled, 3 takes. is a great trick to use in your own solos. Like, I remember when I cut a song on my first solo album, Guitar Nerd, and it's called Monster Movie. And when I got to the guitar solo, it's kind of like an active song. There's a lot of riffs and shredding and stuff going on in the tune. By the time I got to the solo, I was like, where do I go from here? I feel like I've already been soloing for 2 minutes, and now we're at the solo and I need to make it bigger. And the first thing I thought of was, Randy, triple track. Let's triple track and see if that makes the solo sound just huge. And it did. It took it to another level. So that's something that I totally stole from Randy Rhoads, that whole technique. Randy was such a unique guitar player. You know, there was some pentatonic and some blues-based stuff going on for sure, but also he was so modal and melodic in his playing, like a very European sound. Like before him, when I think about in hard rock and metal, we had Tony, you know, kind of doing that thing, and also like Michael Schenker, Uli. But like American guitar players, maybe Tom Scholz, I guess, kind of had a little bit more of a modal approach going on, for sure, like Peter Frampton. But the way that Randy did it was a distinctly kind of minor key, classical influenced, and you know it's him. Like as soon as you hear it, that's one of his solos, or that's his sound. And when we keep in mind that he was just early 20s when he did all this stuff, it's like really phenomenal. I had tickets to see Randy with Ozzy and was so excited to go to the show. You know, it's Diary of a Madman tour, and I had like, I think it was like 6th row floor, something like that. And then Randy passes away. And we were all like, oh my God, what? It was so sad. As like young guitar players, we couldn't believe that that had happened to him. So I ended up going to the show because the tour carried on. Brad Gillis filled in, and I ended up seeing Ozzy with Brad. Anyway, the show was cool. I always remember it. I remember Brad really well. And I remember thinking even then as a really young kid, I mean, I think I was 11, thinking like, wow, like he was able to step in and, you know, do a really admirable job filling Randy's shoes. But of course, nobody can fill Randy's shoes. He was completely unique, just a one-of-a-kind, one of those electric guitar, heavy metal, rock and roll icons. So anyways, I feel really fortunate to have gotten to check out this guitar that was, you know, destined to be in Randy's hands, and is still around and still kicking ass. This thing is really fun. Thanks to you guys for watching the video. Please hit subscribe and hit the little bell beside the subscribe if you haven't. You'll get an alert when I put out videos. I am Pete Thorn. Over and out.